Welcome to Kennywood. Located near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, this park has gathered a reputation among coaster enthusiasts as the home of 3 classic wooden coasters, but it is also the home of one of the best steel coasters of all time, the Phantom's Revenge. Since Kennywood is such a small park, many would find it odd that such an incredible coaster resides here, but the story behind this ride is almost as incredible as that second drop. Let me take you back to 1990, when the most thrilling steel coaster at Kennywood was this, the Laser Loop. It's a Schwarzkopf flywheel launch coaster, almost identical to Montezuma's Revenge at Knott's Berry Farm. The Laser Loop thrilled guests for 10 years, but the management at Kennywood wanted more. More specifically, a massive steel coaster that would put them on the map for more than just their classic wooden coasters. During the designing process, one problem remained prevalent: Kennywood's lack of space. The park is situated between a river and a major highway, with residential areas on both sides. With park expansion out of the question, the decision was made to use the same hillside location as one of the wooden coasters, Thunderbolt. Kennywood brought in Aerodynamics, who just the previous year had broken records with Magnum XL200 at Cedar Point, the world's first hypercoaster. The term hypercoaster is used to describe any roller coaster whose drop exceeds 200 feet, and Magnum XL200 kickstarted the coaster wars, convincing more parks to build bigger, faster roller coasters. In July of 1990, Kennywood announced the name of their new ride, Steel Phantom, and construction took place during the 1990 off-season. May 10th, 1991 was the day the Steel Phantom opened to the public and made Kennywood a destination for coaster enthusiasts everywhere. Using the same station that once housed the Laser Loop, the ride began with a chain lift to a height of 160 feet. The first drop took riders down from that height through a sharp right turn, which brought the trains to 65 miles per hour. After the first drop came what was undoubtedly the most impressive part of the ride, a 225-foot drop into the ravine, during which the trains passed through the structure of the Thunderbolt. This drop not only made for a great head chopper effect, but it provided a rare example of a second drop that was longer than the first. Also, despite its height of only 160 feet, the second drop exceeding 200 feet qualified the Phantom as a hypercoaster. Speaking of hypercoasters, the majority of them, including Aero's own Magnum XL200, focus on speed and airtime as their main elements. Despite the positive feedback they got on Magnum, Aerodynamics decided to do something unusual with the second half of the Steel Phantom. After plunging into the 225-foot drop and reaching a top speed of 80 miles per hour, the Steel Phantom sent riders directly into a vertical loop. Following the vertical loop were a boomerang as well as a corkscrew, and after passing through these elements, the train went through one more turn and back into the station. The Steel Phantom received rave reviews for its first half, and especially the second drop, but riders frequently complained about the 4 inversions being too rough. As you might expect, going through such tight inversions at 80 miles per hour was exhilarating, but also quite painful for the riders, as a lot of headbanging did occur. Kennywood did try to remedy this with a set of very noticeable trim brakes on the first loop, but this did little to reduce the forces riders experienced in the inversions. Despite the complaints, Steel Phantom operated for nearly 10 years and quickly became an icon for the park. In March of 2000, during Steel Phantom's 10th season of operation, Kennywood announced that following the conclusion of the 2000 season, Steel Phantom would be closed permanently. This decision angered many guests who felt the coaster should remain, despite the rough inversions. Kennywood even received hate mail for announcing their plans to dismantle the coaster well before any demolition had even begun. Park management went back to the drawing board, and finally, it was decided that the coaster would not be demolished, but rather renovated. Enter D.H. Morgan Manufacturing, commonly referred to as just Morgan. They were responsible for such coasters as Wild Thing at Valley Fair and the legendary Steel Dragon 2000 at Nagashima Spa Land. After the conclusion of the 2000 season, Morgan was brought in to renovate the Steel Phantom and address the complaints of park guests. The solution? Removing all 4 inversions and introducing a ton of airtime elements. By opening day 2001, The massive black coaster track that guests had grown used to seeing was replaced by a brighter, green roller coaster. Morgan had created the Phantom's Revenge, a hybrid combination of two coaster manufacturers that breathed new life into the aging coaster. What exactly did Morgan change? The first half of the ride was almost exactly the same. In fact, Morgan didn't replace the track for the first half, so the station, lift hill, and first drop still used aerodynamic steel Phantom track. The second drop, though, was where things began to change. The drop still went through Thunderbolt's structure, but it was slightly increased to 228 feet, allowing the trains to reach 85 miles per hour. Instead of going through the inversions, the trains went through a massive turnaround before once again passing through the Thunderbolt structure. The remaining section of the ride is packed with airtime, as a series of bunny hills and one final turn bring the ride back into the station. The bunny hills provide lots of ejector airtime, where riders will abruptly lift away from their seats. Morgan even provided new trains to take advantage of the airtime. Gone were the over-the-shoulder restraints of the old Aero trains. Now, there is only a seatbelt and a lap bar to worry about, and the lap bars leave some room between them and your legs, further enhancing the airtime received on the ride. During its opening season, the Phantom's Revenge operated with only one train, but a second was added for the 2002 season. The trains themselves are interesting, as they are not the normal design used on Morgan Hypercoasters. The chassis are the same from the original steel Phantom, but the bodies are new designs by Morgan. With a mixture of both old and new, as well as its excellent airtime, the Phantom's Revenge flew to the top of the roller coaster charts, and it has consistently placed in the Golden Ticket Awards since its opening. In the years that have passed, not a whole lot has changed with the Phantom's Revenge. In 2009, Kennywood replaced the track on the first drop with new Morgan track, so the only remaining track from the Steel Phantom on the ride today is in the station and lift hill. The most recent update to come to the coaster was in 2014, when the ride received new fiberglass trains. Rather than the green and purple color scheme found on the old trains, each train is one solid color. The Phantom's Revenge has now been thrilling guests for over 15 years, 25 if you count its origins as the Steel Phantom. Morgan Manufacturing is still around today under the name Chance Rides, but they have produced new coasters such as the awesome Lightning Run at Kentucky Kingdom, proving that they can still make a great airtime-packed ride. As coasters become more advanced and new ones open every year, the Phantom remains a firm favorite. Some enthusiasts long for the inversions of the Steel Phantom, while others insist the Revenge treatment was a much-needed makeover. No matter the case, it's a safe bet that green coaster towering over Kennywood Park will continue to thrill riders for years to come.